It's amazing what humans have accomplished. Cars that think, machines that learn, healthcare that predicts. The progress of tomorrow has yet to be imagined, but it will rely on data. It will rely on Virtiv. Virtiv ensures data gets where it needs to be uninterrupted. Critical power is always running. Servers perform at optimal temperatures. Infrastructures grow safely and responsibly. Applications run without glitches, and life leaps forward again. Getting there takes vision and agility. Our leading experts think beyond infrastructure, connecting the dots to create integrated, intelligent ecosystems, to create a future that takes innovation to the next level. And when business needs shift, we work closely with our customers every step of the way. Together, we ensure they are ready before they ever need to be. Virtiv provides continuity in our digital world, so we remain unbound, liberated, free to create the next big thing. Virtiv, architects of continuity.
Hello. Should we start?
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Should I start?
Very good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Amit Kakkar, who is the Additional Chief Engineer and Director of Department of IT at Palma Shah Data Center in Jaipur. He has been closely associated with us and he has been the backbone for data centers in Rajasthan. He's been instrumental in deploying from the smallest to the largest scale data centers as part of the government. IGBC is developing the Bhamasha data center case study with his help, and sir, your contribution is very important to us. Over to Mr. Amit Kakkar. Sir, please go ahead.
Yeah. Welcome all participants on this wonderful panel discussions on green power for green image and operational benefits for data center. And I feel very happy in introducing our today's moderator, Ms. Shalini Singh. Ms. Shalini Singh has 20 years of... Ms. Shalini Singh has 20 years of international experience in design, operations, finance, engineering management, project management, and corporate sustainability, and worked for large technology companies both hardware and software, and educational institutions. Shalini joined VMware Bangalore in 2015 and leads sustainability function for India, APJ and EMEA. Prior to VMware, she worked for Stanford University leading carbon accounting, sustainable IT programs, and demand-side energy management. She has successfully driven strategic and tactical goals across functional teams in diverse sectors, demonstrating influence, leadership, and unbridled passion. Shalini is a technologist at heart and trained architect with an MBA from St. Joe's State University. So I am handing over today's wonderful session, which everybody will enjoy today, to Ms. Shalini to kindly moderate and educate all our participants today. Thank you, Shalini.
Thank you, Ahmed Kakkar. It's a pleasure and honor to moderate this panel, rightly titled Green Power for Green Image and Operational Benefits for Data Centers. Today, we have a very distinguished panel. And so without further ado, I'll start with introducing the panelists for the session today. So if we can start rolling their profiles. First up, Mr. Andrew Hines. Andrew started CleanMax Solar. He's the co-founder. He started CleanMax Solar in 2011, and he moved to Bangalore in 2012 to launch the company's South India business operations. Prior to CleanMax Solar, he has worked with Suzlon Energy, BP Alternative Energy, Atlas Renewables. He has also dabbled in nonprofit. He was a founding employee at Kaivalya Education Foundation, and he holds an MBA from Wharton. Our next panelist is Mr. Sudhanshu Dutt, who has just moved from the other session. He was a moderator there. Welcome, Sudhanshu. He's a pioneer in data center infrastructure projects, having built, certified, and operated very large hyperscale data centers in India since 2006. Over 30 years of very rich experience in project management, infrastructure operations, telecom and IT infrastructure, and data centers. He's currently with AECOM as the sector lead for data centers and mission critical infrastructure. Next, we have Mr. Deepak Dhar, and it's quite an honor to know that he has also served in the Indian Navy. He's a professional with 35 years of work experience covering a very varied canvas. He worked for Indian Navy, HR, and infrastructure development. In his current assignment, he is the head of infrastructure and facilities for the rest of North Zone at ICICI Bank, passionate about energy efficiency and sustainable development. Next up, Mr. Sanjay Bhutani. He represents Adani Data Center. He's a management professional with more than 28 years of experience in fields like IT, telecom, cloud, and data center across business development, sales and marketing, customer service, vendor management, business processes. He has expertise in planning, blueprinting, profitable execution of data center, telecom, and IT projects, SMEs, and cloud business. He has led very large data center build operations, business planning, even investor process, and he has very strong networking relationships with OTTs, global telecom operators, and also led large network rollout projects. Last, we have, not the least, Mr. Balwant Joshi. He is the founder, promoter, and MD of EDAM Infrastructure Advisory Private Limited. He's also director of Origin Renewables Private Limited, which is a distributed renewable energy company with a very innovative boot business model. He started his career with Tata Power. He has worked at ICRA Advisory and also at Deloitte before starting his own venture called ABPS Infrastructure Advisory in 2005. Another thing is the founder and secretary of Indian Renewable Energy Federation. So with that, welcome all the panelists. With such a distinguished panel, I must admit I'm truly honored to steer this panel discussion today. And what I wanted to do today is really start this panel discussion with the first simple question, and I want just a 1-minute answer to this is, can you share a personal story on why you care for sustainability. And we can start with Mr. Balwant Joshi.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Shalini, for kind introduction, as well as thank you, CII GBC, for inviting me for this particular session. It's very interesting. What is the personal story behind the sustainable energy? You introduced me. I started my career with Tata Power, working with thermal power projects, and have seen how the thermal power projects operate and what kind of impact it has got on the environment. And that's precisely the reason I realized that there has to be a way out of it. While when I started working with Tata Power, the climate change was not in fashion, it was in early 90s. But the effect or impact was very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So that motivated me to move into as soon as possible. So, I moved into renewables at the change of millennia. And since then, working for last 20 years, working into the various renewable energy and energy efficiency sector areas.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great story, Balwant. Very, very formidable connection. Andrew, your personal story.
Hi, Shalini. Thanks for the introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here today. So, introduction or the personal story I thought I would share is linked partly to the story of my company CleanMax, which we founded 10 years ago this month. So I had worked in my career in renewable energy and in the environment, but more from a public policy perspective prior to starting CleanMax. And of course, policy has a very important role to play in sustainability in the power sector generally, but particularly to do with aspects of the environment. But one belief that was in our minds as the founders of CleanMax back in 2010 was that corporates actually have a very important role to play as the vanguard of adoption of sustainability solutions around the world. And that's something which today I think we would all take for granted. But even 10 years ago, not such a long time ago, actually that was not so. The corporate buying of renewable energy was negligible at that time. We really saw it as government's responsibility to provide incentives for renewable energy. And it's really gratifying to see over the 10 years that I've been working in India at CleanMax, where we work very closely with corporates on their sustainability goals, to see how far we've come and to see how many corporates have set for themselves very ambitious goals and, more importantly, really made material progress towards those goals. And that's something which is really, I'm really delighted to see and happy to talk more about today.
Great. Sanjay, you have a story or inspiration?
Someone has to understand it. Voice. About 26, 20 years, 26
Can you
years.
reduce the volume?
I think someone is talking. Yeah. So telecom, IT and data center piece is something which is very important personally for me to contribute a carbon side, because when we started this journey, we were actually clueless in terms of how can contribute to a climate change, and this energy sector can actually give a lot of factors which will contribute to a carbon free environment. And data center is a power guzzler, all of us know. And data center is something which can actually, if we look at it holistically, climate change or sustainability is something which we can change big time. And we have already started a lot of initiative. And personally, I've been working in a lot of projects from last 5-7 years, and we can actually contribute more and more. And we will make sure on this journey side we have complete green energy, and the climate change is something which is more important for all of us. And personally, I'm very excited to be part of this journey, and we are contributing day by day, and the journey will go on.
Great, great. Sudhanshu, What's been your story or inspiration?
You're muted.
Sudhanshu, you're mute.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shalini, and thank you so much, CII, for organizing this and starting off with such an interesting question. I mean, for me, it is not about a personal experience, but more about a personal commitment towards the industry for ensuring that we move more towards renewables. I have been involved with in the data center industry now more than 15 years. I have worked in various capacities in various organizations, designing data centers, building data centers, managing operations. And I have seen data center footprints increase from early days, 12, 14 years ago. We built up a data center of 5 megawatts. We thought that, wow, I mean, that's an achievement. And today 5 megawatts is just one floor in a data center building of 30 megawatts. And we are building parks of 100 megawatts, 150 megawatts. Now, as the footprint is growing larger, we also have to be very cognizant of the fact that 70 to 72% of the energy produced in India is not clean energy. It is majorly thermal power plants, coal-fired power plants, and that makes us much more conscious of the fact that the more we move towards renewable in our country, will be the impact will be more impactful. And we in AECOM, we really promote our partners, our customers to move towards net zero, to move towards cleaner energy. And I don't see this as a very difficult task, because most data center operators are themselves very educated about it. It doesn't take much effort to convince them. It's easy to convince them, and added to top it up is the commercial advantage which they get by getting the solar or wind power energy. So it's an interesting journey, and I'm enjoying the ride. Thank you so much.
Great, great. I think that's well said. Digital transformation is accelerating the data center industry in India, and the key to this growth is to power it with renewable energy and energy efficiency. So Deepak, what's been your story? Is there a story or maybe just a cultural experience?
Shalini, see, my tryst with actually sustainability goes back to my formative years. Being a rural kid, I grew up in a rural environment, nature all around me. And as time passed, moved to the urban centers for better opportunities, joined the Navy. Those days there used to be a saying, join the Navy, see the world. So happened to see the world, went around, saw the impact of industrialization across the globe. And with time, I got an opportunity to move into the corporate world, joined the bank. And having joined the bank, ICICI, for all, it has got a huge, very, very involved in green policies and green initiatives. So I've got lot many opportunities in ICICI Bank. We set up our city, which is India's first platinum rated green building. So so I've been very, very lucky and passionate about it. And now I'm getting an opportunity to do something great about it. Maybe I'm new in this field compared to the rest of the panelists, but certainly, I'm passionate about it. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Oh, that's a great opening from all of you. So moving to the meat of this session, I mean, I'm sure audience is waiting to hear and take some nuggets of learnings. I'll start off this panel with the first question to Andrew. Andrew, you are from one of the leading corporate solar providers. You serve corporate manufacturing industrial segment. What do you see are some of the biggest challenges faced by the data center developers, owners, with regards to adopting renewable power?
Sure, Shalini. So I think one of the key challenges very broadly in this segment for data centers or for any private off-taker of power has to do with regulations. Because power, of course, is a heavily regulated subject anywhere in the world. And well, the Electricity Act does empower individual consumers to consume power from any generator in theory, there are a lot of constraints that come into force. And of course, those regulations are state specific. So depending on which state you're located in, the regulations may be quite different, and the options that you have as a consumer of power may be different. But I think one common theme which is worth focusing on, which we see emerging over the last year or two, and I think will extend into the future, is that banking facilities for power and for renewable energy are being withdrawn by the states. So in the past, we've had very generous banking regimes which allowed generators to generate power at any time of the day and any time of the year, and consume the power at a different time of the day or time of the year. But as renewables has matured, governments have, I think, rightly seen that renewables should be able to compete on their own merits, and therefore are requiring generators and consumers to match the supply and demand of power to some extent. I think the extent to which they require that varies quite a bit from state to state. But the trend is very clear that there's a move away from very generous banking towards a closer match between generation and supply. And when I think about how data centers or any other off-taker of power can address that, I think there are, within the regulations which are there at a point in time, storage is obviously something which people think about, which is an obvious solution to that problem, because the power requirement, particularly for a data center, will be round the clock. So whether you're looking at wind or solar power, neither on its own will really match the load profile. Storage, of course, is one way of doing that. I think storage is something where we see a very promising future with costs coming down and the technology becoming much more mature. But at the same time, it's really not, storage solutions are not really cost competitive today on a large scale, if you're looking at it from a cost of power basis. Another solution, which I think is much more ready to deploy today, is hybrid supplies of power, of wind and solar. Because in India, India is fortunate not only to have good wind and solar resources, but also that the wind and solar resources are quite complementary. So at the times of the year when wind is blowing is the same time of year when the sun is not shining, and vice versa. So if you actually have a round-the-clock power requirement, if you're sourcing a combination of wind and solar power, you don't get a completely flat load profile, but you get something much closer to that than you would if you're sourcing only from one or the other alone. And to that end, actually, for that reason, we're actually setting up our first 2 wind solar hybrid projects right now for data centers and others. And the goal, I think, the goal that we, or what we try, the shift which we try to encourage among our customers, is that they should no longer be preoccupied only with the cost of power per kilowatt hour, but more about the cost, of course, but also about the share of their power requirement, which can be offset. Because if you're able to offset 60, 70, 80% of your power versus say 30 or 40% with a different technology, obviously that'll make a very big difference in the cost savings and your sustainability target. So that's something which I think a lot of data centers are looking at today, is how to optimize the quantum of power which they can achieve for that location.
Great, Andrew, you raised many points, and that sort of made me, I'm going to shift from what I thought earlier. So I'm going to go to Balwant Joshi. Balwant, we talked about this earlier in the day, and Andrew, you brought that point up about the mix of solar and wind in the generation. Balwant, there's this, we know that data centers is a unique building type and the load is constant. So solar alone or wind alone will not suffice. And there are challenges to meeting this demand. But tell us a little bit more about the offerings, especially what Andrew touched upon, storage, but elaborate on the common perceptions that people have about the environmental impact of storage. Balwant?
Yeah, thanks, Shalini. So actually, Andrew has mentioned several problems that data centers face, or actually any corporate client procurer of renewable energy faces. And the biggest challenge is the state regulation. While the banking is one clog in the wheel, there are so many other issues that change from state to state. Banking is bound to be withdrawn as it's very obvious because of the, not only because of the maturity of the renewable energy sources, but also because of the very tightening the deviation settlement mechanisms, forecasting, scheduling regulations. And as a result of that, DISCOMs have to face a very stringent deviation settlement mechanism. And within that mechanism, it would be very difficult for any distribution company to offer banking. But the bigger challenge is the open access regulations vary from state to state. The captive rules, the interpretation of the captive rules vary from state to state. And as a result of that, the bigger challenge is that how do we really structure the transaction in each state? Data center pose a further complicated problem because neither solar nor wind profile is able to meet the data center requirement. And the storage, as you said, while the costs have come down from $1,000 per kilowatt hour to $300, $320 per kilowatt hour, still the battery adder, what we call it in our electricity parlance, is still very high and doesn't make it commercially viable. While I'm glad to hear that many data center clients have started looking at not only at the cost, but also the social impact of it or social aspect of it, we come across very few clients who really go for social impact. The primary driver for the clients is to go for the reduced cost. The cost of solar has come down to 2 rupees, 2 rupees 40 paise, 3 rupees, whatever may be the number, but certainly far lower than the utility tariff, and everyone wants to procure the energy at a lower tariff, and that's the reason they want to go for solar-based procurement. And solar-based procurement with 20% CUF is not sufficient enough to meet significant requirement. Also, the restrictions due to the contract demand or not beyond contract demand or 50% of the contract demand, which vary from state to state, pose humongous challenge for the transaction. So certainly solar plus wind is a good solution, which actually increases the CUF to 50%. Unfortunately, the open access regulations are not at the same level in every state, but even then that helps. The battery systems, when they would come in, they would be certainly positive from the procurement point of view. But the battery system, what we expect, at least to begin with, is that not fresh lithium-ion batteries would immediately come into the play over here. So a lot of these batteries would be the second-use batteries, which have lived their life through their mobility part of the operations, and then they would come into the stationary applications, which are like a battery storage. Having served for a mobility application for a period of 5-6 years, and then serving another 5 to 6 years into the stationary application like battery storage with solar wind hybrid, I think the environmental impact is going to be limited. Currently, there are no facilities to recover these rare earth materials from the batteries, but in next 4 or 5 years period of time, we expect the facilities would be created. The government would ensure that these facilities are created, and we would be able to recover those rare earths because their supply anyway is in short supply, and we will have to use them for the recycling purposes for creating new batteries. So a little longish answer, but long and short of it is that from the environmental perspective, we expect the impact to be far lower than what is being envisaged today.
Oh, great. Thank you for that perspective about the second use battery and the recyclability of the materials. Just shifting gears a little bit, Deepak, you are responsible for a large retail infrastructure. You also manage the data center infrastructure for ICICI Bank. Now, when you are trying to focus your efforts, where do you start first? Do you start with energy efficiency or do you start with green power?
Shalini, your question is a very tricky one. It's like which came first, chicken or egg? So to answer your question, so I would say, to me, energy efficiency and green power are two sides of a coin. So, as far as sustainability is concerned, you cannot disassociate one from the other. See, by adopting energy efficiency measures, we're actually reducing on the wastage which is caused by consuming normal power. Whereas by using green power, we are actually generating without depleting the resources. So both have their own space in so far as energy efficiency or sustainability is concerned. A couple of more points to support my logic is that there is another very important aspect is adoption of green power. It will take some time for any enterprise, whereas the benefits of an energy efficiency are visible right from day one. So you can, because we are already using in energy, electricity is there in our premises, so we can start implementing methods to reduce the consumption. Whereas for a green power, we'll have to do something more, so which will take time. Then green power certainly will take some nurturing for us to see the accrual of benefits. Also, as regards energy efficiency measures, they will deliver some tangible benefits up to a limited extent. But if you want to gain the benefits much larger for a sustainable growth and larger benefits, you will have to migrate to the renewable or green power. So, and also one more thing is that energy, whatever we get from normal resources, that is they deplete the energy, those resources with time. Whereas in case of green power, you are able to generate without depleting the resources. So long and short of it is that we will require both in tandem. That is my answer. And we are actually doing the same in our data center at maybe Jaipur.
Great, fantastic. I completely agree with you. Every watt that we save is also, a megawatt is also equally important than powering with renewable energy. I'll move to Sanjay Bhutani. Sanjay, you come from a vantage position. You are one of the India's largest infrastructure conglomerate. We are into renewable power distribution, energy infrastructure. What do you think are some of the major policy constraints that can be unlocked so that we can enable higher penetration of renewable energy in the data center industry?
Thanks. So there are a couple of factors to it. One, if you look at it sustainability holistically, there is a chain to it. And this value chain covers construction, operations, and finally disposal of IT hardware, which is primarily implement circular economy, which Balwant briefly touched upon. So this has to be looked at holistically, the sustainability factor. As far as sustainability goes, there are multiple elements to it. One is obviously there are solutions which are currently implementable in state, and federal is also looking at that. The way government is looking at a national data policy, the way personal data protection law is coming, the way government is promoting data center parks, I think it's very important to have creation of large scale renewable energy parks, which can be actually used by all of us, and there is a common infrastructure, people can use it. I think that is going to benefit all of us. Coming to an innovative solution in energy sector, in a green energy side, I think contract for difference, which is CFD, we are actually not solving the only India problem. We can be a hub for APAC. There are issues in countries like Japan, Singapore, Taiwan. These countries have a space constraint. If we are going to create infrastructure which can serve not only India, actually we can help APAC also solving the problem. This is something which is helping, which will help. And coming to a construction side and energy side, I think there are various ways. If we partner with we have a right partner who can help us to reduce the carbon side, and there are ways in terms of gas-based DGs. There are hydrogen fuel cells. There are a lot of ways we can actually implement ourselves. We need not to go for everything to a government. I think ourselves can resolve a lot of stuff, and creating large parks, which is like the way we are doing it for data center and other infrastructure side. I think we are going to solve this problem, which will help data center industry to grow. And everyone knows data center has been growing at a very, very high pace, and with the pandemic around, and data center is going to grow more and more. I think it becomes very, very, very important for us to have these kind of policies and infrastructure in place, which can sustain and attract a lot of global players in data center.
Great, great. That's really opening the perspective. Attract investments, be serving co-located markets like Singapore, Japan, you said, and then large-scale renewable energy parks at scale. So that's broadened our horizon. And you mentioned, Sanjay, about things that we can do in our design. So I'm going to move to Sudhanshu. Sudhanshu, you have designed many data centers, maybe more than 24, maybe 20. That's a very big number for data center industry. So what have been some of the most important advice you've given to your data center clients? They're all in India, globally. On how to get to net zero energy, how to make the most efficient data center.
Yeah, Shalini, thank you so much. Very apt and a very interesting question. And yes, I mean, as AECOM, we are involved in multiple data center projects for multiple clients within India, globally, and we have a very strong niche team working on it. See, in terms of advice giving to data center clients, I think the data center clients themselves are, I mean, on the panel, we have people who are operating data centers. Adani is getting into data centers. ICICI Bank is running their own data centers. So there's no issue or no challenge in convincing them about renewable or moving towards net zero. I think most of them are much more aware than us. And how we contribute is, in terms of the designs which we do, is how do we make the designs more energy efficient, more modular. So as a consultant, we support them with the latest technology in high efficient integrated design approach. The best performance parameters is resulting in lower PUEs, lower power usage effectiveness, lower water usage effectiveness. And we also support them in modular and scalable designs, because you see, as I earlier mentioned, the data center footprints are increasing by the day. They are, I mean, today we talk of 100 megawatt data center park with multiple buildings of 20 to 25 megawatts per building power consumption, campuses of 100 megawatts, 150 megawatts, and the footprints will go on increasing, the densities will go on increasing, power consumption will go on increasing. So a modular and scalable approach to the design results in more optimum utilization of all the electrical and mechanical equipments, which by default makes it more efficient in terms of energy consumption. And once it's more efficient, then obviously you are consuming the optimum or the minimum amount of energy for the cooling against what you are consuming for the compute or for the storage. And I mean, moving towards net zero, actually, all the tech companies, all global internet giants, data center companies have their own commitments towards corporate social responsibilities. They have made their own announcements and signed climate pledges to achieve net zero, if not 100%, whatever best percentage they can achieve. Maybe like some companies have made announcements. I heard in one of the conferences earlier that by 2025, they will ensure that 50% of the energy they consume in the data centers will be through renewables, which are primarily achieved through either open access regulations or through power purchase agreements, where they participate in investment in large solar and wind farms in various geographies and try and use that energy produced over there, renewable, to towards in their data center locations. And this becomes all the more important because you see, large part of more than 72% of the energy generated in India is through power generating plants, through coal-fired plants.
Right.
And that is not clean energy.
Mm-hmm.
Against that, every kilowatt, every megawatt of energy which they can generate and consume through renewable is a huge, huge contribution towards the society.
Fantastic. Great.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
There are commitments which all corporates are making. And these tech companies and data center companies are already becoming the largest buyers of clean power.
Yes.
So yes, the awareness is very much there, and through conferences like this, through forums like this, I think we make people more aware, which is a very good initiative driven by CII. Also, I think somebody in the panel mentioned, I forget who, one of my colleagues, that what is the prime driver of renewable energy is also the cost advantage or the subsidy which they get. I mean, each data center company who gets into renewable gets an advantage of almost, I think, 1 rupee 25 paisa or 1 rupee 50 paisa per unit of energy consumed through renewables. So that's a huge advantage which they get. And their end customers are further large banks or e-commerce companies who are also further committed, have their own commitments towards renewable. And if those benefits are passed on to their end customers, then by default, these benefits are passed on to the end users like you and me, who do their net banking on the phone or who do the e-commerce on your handheld devices. And that's how, as a society at large, everybody does benefit out of it. So
great. Sudhanshu, you connected everything. I'm going to quickly move to the last question. I've got this red signal. Okay, so I'll start with Deepak. Deepak, you have started this initiative of powering your retail banking centers and data centers through green power. What's the business value you get out of green power? Why are you doing it?
Yeah, see, let me put it that way that, see, ICICI Bank as such is very, very, conscious about green power as an organization, and we've got a very, very robust and a stringent policy on the sustainability. And if I have to quote a few facts, that will actually tell you what it means to us. In the last 6 to 8 years, our organization has won over 100 awards at various forums on energy efficiency, be it at CII Awards for Excellence or national or state level energy conservation awards. 11 of our premises have been certified with highest rating, that is a platinum rating in various categories by IGBC. Our data center at Hyderabad is the first IGBC platinum rated data center in India and first uptime tier 3 certified data center in Indian banking industry. So this is the kind of impetus and focus ICICI Bank has got towards sustainability towards sustainability. In fact, we have gone a step further. We have actually mandated for our employees, about 130 of our employees are IGBC certified accredited professional, because we want to develop this culture within the organization. Because see, it is very easy to read and attend conference, but if I don't have people within my organization who will spread this message, I'm not going to achieve anything. So that is another aspect. And look at the profits, benefits. My data center in Jaipur, 25% of the energy needs are met through solar. So though it's a small data center, but you understand that the banking data centers are very, very critical. They're mission critical. We can't afford to have a downtime of even an hour, because all of you will be impacted when you go to an ATM. So to say the least, that we have got that is what the benefit that we get. Great. We get the goodwill of everybody.
Okay, I have to close this session. I have got 1 minute. I'm going to ask everybody, what is that one word you want to leave the audience with? A few, or just a phrase with relation to green power and data centers. A phrase or a word. It has to be rapid fire. Andrew, you want to go?
Sure, I'm happy to start. I think I can keep it to a number, if not a word anyway, and say 100%. I think that's really
excellent. Excellent. I love that. I love that. Okay, Mr. Balwant.
I think 100% by some specific year would be far more important.
2025. How about 2025?
I think that would be a little too aggressive, but I will be happy even if it's 2030.
Okay, Sanjay, I know you can power this whole of India. Tell what's the word?
The first one, 100%. It's irrespective of years.
100%. Okay, Sudhanshu.
No, I think very well said by Andrew and the 100% as soon as possible. I mean, it's
Okay, Amit, I forgot to include you. Amit, you have anything to say? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah. I will say go green and net zero data centers.
Excellent. Deepak, any last word, yours.
No, I think I will go with Amit. He has very aptly said, go, net zero. And that is what we should be looking at.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. I have to tell, this has been an absolute honor for me. And now I'm going to hand it back to CII. Dr. Shivraj?
Yes, Shalini, thank you very much. I think wonderful discussion. There would be a lot of good messages come out from all the leaders. And now we are running late. We will not have question on session. Already the next session is on. Please join there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so
Thanks.
much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.